It's been a couple of days since Unity Cup scenario has come out, and with just a few more days, we're going to have our first champions meeting during the Unity Cup scenario, Virgo Cup. With the new scenario and the balance adjustment, many of you are probably lost on what to do for the upcoming champions meeting, Virgo Cup. So in this video, I will go over the common questions that you guys had and provide you with the answers so that you can feel confident at building your UMAs for the upcoming champions meeting, Virgo Cup. Why should we listen to JP and KR veteran? With the new balance adjustment, your opinion has become obsolete. While it's true that we'll be experiencing Virgo Cup on a totally different environment as we did on the KR or the JP server, that doesn't mean that our opinions has become totally obsolete. While they were implemented at a different time, KP and JR veterans still has experience playing Uma Musume post balance adjustment. And this is not our first rodeo with the Hanshin 1600 meter champions meeting. The second Libra Cup, which happened during the Grand Life scenario, had the exact same track condition as the current Virgo Cup, with the only difference being the weather condition, and support card available, and of course different stat requirement between the two scenarios. Fortunately, we won't have to suffer through Christmas Oguri just yet. So while the environment is totally different, we have general idea on what UMAs and skills are good to run for this track. What is the recommended stats for the UMAs for the Virgo Cup? These are the recommended stats depending on the type of UMAs that you'll be running. First, you want to raise your speed close to the max as possible. For your stamina, around 600 is enough, except for pace. And for the new running style, Runaway, we'll need additional stamina for the total of 750 stamina for the Runaway Suzuka to finish the run. For power, I recommend at least 867. For Hanshin 1600 meters, you will get 5% speed stat for every 300 powers. But the reason why 867 is enough is because of the mood bonus. Because the stat gained from mood bonus also counts towards the secret stat boost. During the champions meeting finals, the mood will always be set to highest. You don't really need to get more than 867 powers. This course also got updated to only have a single uphill instead of originally which had two uphills. So after getting around 867 power, instead of investing more into power, I would invest into width instead, especially for frontrunners. For guts, even around 400 guts should be good enough. Even after the buff, guts is still the least important stat out of the 5. As you can see, these were recommended stats for a second Libra Cup, which happened during the Grand Life scenario. Even then, Guts was the lowest priority and will continue to be so for quite a while. I'm not saying that Guts build will totally be obsolete, but just that I personally recommend you to focus on speed, power, and width instead of Guts. But for those who are confident on their Guts build, they could choose to go with Guts build instead. And for width, you want your width to be high as possible. The era of running UMAs with less than 500 widths is dead. You would like to get your width high as possible for better skill proc rate, lower chance to get rushed, but most importantly, for the speed boost at the downhill section. Also because of how your Unity Cup scenario works, for the energy recovery, you want to bring much width card as possible. And if you have MLB Kita-san, try to borrow MLB Fire Motion for the upcoming champions meeting, Virgo Cup. And remember, these are just the recommended stats. Newer players with lower MLB cards will struggle to get anything even close to this level of stat. And that's okay. Just set them as a goal and try to get close as possible. Why is the stamina requirement for Runaway Suzuka so low? Even for Runaway Suzuka, 750 stamina is more than enough. Actually, I would recommend you to not go over this number. Surprisingly, it's not an exorbitant amount of stamina than what the people were saying out to be. However, Runaway Suzuka is very flimsy. Even if you breathe a little bit too hard next to Suzuka, could cause her to explode. If you run into some misfortune, such as late start, rushed, and if there are more than one Runaway Suzuka and they triggers a spot struggle, Runaway Suzuka will consume 3.5 times more stamina than usual. Then 750 stamina will not be enough. This is how much stamina you will need if your Runaway Suzuka triggers a spot struggle. Basically, ripperoni pepperoni. So running a Runaway Suzuka could kind of become a gamble if they trigger a spot struggle in the first 150 meter of the race. Bear in mind, Runaway Suzuka can only trigger a spot struggle when there's another Runaway Suzuka in the race that's less than 5 meters from each other. So it's possible even if there's 3 Runaway Suzuka, as long as they're not within 5 meters from each other, in the first 150 meter, a spot struggle will not happen. So it's actually possible for Runaway Suzuka to win the race even if there are multiple silent Suzuka. And that's what I saw on the room matches too, where the power level of Runaway Suzuka that I saw from the room matches were night and day different. So if you build a monster Runaway Suzuka, aka known as a truck in the Korean server,
surprise, mother.
that is much stronger than every other Runaway Suzuka, you won't have to worry about spot struggle. Unlike a Make a New Track when her Runaway strategy was first released, due to character-specific event not triggering during the Make a New Track scenario, it was impossible for you to create a Runaway Suzuka when you're playing a Make a New Track scenario. So people who wanted to use Runaway Suzuka had to make one on the Unity Cup scenario and compete with the Umas created on Make a New Track scenario with higher stats and skill points. But with the new balance adjustment, this will be the first time where Runaway Suzuka could compete in the level playing field as everyone else. And she could definitely be one of the Umas that you can use as an ace for the upcoming Champions Meeting Virgo Cup. With the release of Runaway Suzuka, does that mean that every other front runners are basically dead? The answer to that question is no. Even the Runaway Suzuka could potentially be one of your ace, that doesn't mean that she will be stronger than every other front runners. Actually, in my opinion, other front runners are stronger pick than Runaway Suzuka. And the reason is Onige or Runaway base target speed and acceleration at the mid race and the late race portion of the race. So even if she zooms way ahead of every front runners, it's possible for her to get caught by other strong front runners, especially if the other front runners spot struggle with each other. And what I found was that a strong front runner such as Summer Martinjensky with the combination of middle speed skill, a spot struggle, and her unique, which triggers at the middle portion of the race, she will overtake Runaway Suzuka and are able to trigger angling and schemings more often than Silent Suzuka. Even sometimes when Runaway Suzuka are able to win angling and scheming contests, due to her low acceleration coefficient, she will still get overtaken by other front runners or pace chaser, unless she triggers unrestrained at the perfect timing. However, this is a gambly acceleration that could happen at the random point during the final corner. If it triggers at the perfect timing, she could create a significant lead. However, if it triggers at the wrong time, it will basically be a waste. For example, this is when it triggers at correct timing, and this would be when it triggers too early for it to become a waste. What I found from my room matches was that even a strong Runaway Suzuka will win only around 10% of her match against strong front runners or Taiki Shuttle. So I would not recommend running a Runaway Suzuka for the lighthearted, but strong trainer may be able to create a strong Suzuka that could potentially win more than 10% of her match. What about using Runaway Suzuka as a blocker? Is she viable as a blocker? In my opinion, no. Well, that's what I thought at first when I was doing testing with my average Runaway Suzuka. Runaway Suzuka wasn't having that much impact in the room matches. She only won once out of 3 matches, and she only successfully blocked other frontrunners only 1 out of 3 races. And overall, strong frontrunner was still having the highest win rate. However, I did more testing after I found a stronger Runaway Suzuka, and this was a result that I gotten. In the same 30 matches, the stronger Runaway Suzuka taken twice as more angling from other frontrunners. Win rate for the other frontrunner has decreased significantly, and the win rate has increased almost 2-fold. I think building a Runaway Suzuka could actually become a viable move. But remember, your Runaway Suzuka needs to be really strong for her to become a viable blocker. Or else, she won't have very much impact against the strong frontrunners. Like building Runaway Suzuka is really hard. She still needs groundwork and 3 greens. Runaway count as one of the green, by the way. She needs middle game speed skill to able to contest with other strong frontrunners. If you want to build her as a pure blocker, you can choose to opt out on running acceleration skill, so you can spend more skill points towards middle game speed skills. And the reason why Runaway Suzuka is benefiting Pace Chaser is because first, Runaway Suzuka is blocking other front runners from triggering angling and schemings. And also, the way the strategy works is that front and pace wants to speed up trying to catch up to the Runaway Suzuka, thus increasing the pace of the match and helping Taiki Shuttles to move up closer to the front. However, late and end surger do not benefit very much from the Runaway Suzuka. Having 2 Runaway Suzuka didn't really change the outcome. Even if they spot struggle and run out of stamina, they were still able to perform well as a blocker and was able to increase the win rate for Taiki Shuttle. However, this plan can totally backfire if the lobby becomes too front-centric. If there's around 5 front and runaway runners on a single match, then the match becomes heavily favored towards the front. I think this may have to do with Taiki Shuttle needing to be at the 3rd and 4th place to trigger her unique. What are the recommended skills for the Virgo Cup? Here are the recommended skills. The top portion has the acceleration skills, and the bottom has everything else, including greens and other speed skills and debuff. Let's first go over the acceleration. For front and runaway, groundwork is a must. You must get groundwork plus 3 starting skills, greens or early lead. And of course, angling and schemings from Seiyon Sky is the best acceleration for the front runner. Toria por plancha or El Condor's Pasa's unique also be good as a backup acceleration to help you close out the run. With just angling and scheming, sometimes your front runner might have a trouble closing the run against Taiki Shuttle. However, I have seen some strong Summer Marzinski that were able to close the run with just angling and scheming alone. Final Push, or the upgraded gold version, Unrestrained, is the random gold acceleration for the Frontrunner that I mentioned when I was talking about the Runaway Suzuka. It's really hard to get this skill for other Frontrunner that's not Silent Suzuka. If you have some skill points left over, maybe you can get the white skill version, Final Push, but I wouldn't really recommend it. Early Lead got a significant buff from the balance adjustment, and now it's triggered at the start of the race. Now it can work as one of your groundwork trigger, and also another acceleration on top of the groundwork. Taking the lead is the gold version of this skill, and the only way to get this currently is by running Mihona Bourbon or by using Twin Turbo SSR Speed card. However, her event chain is a gamble and has a chance to abruptly end without giving you the hint for taking the lead. I tried using it for 5 runs so far, and I have yet to go past the second chain. So I wouldn't recommend you going for the gold version. Just stick with the early lead for now until the Mihona Bourbon wit card comes out in just a couple of days. For Pace Chaser, the best acceleration is Taikishoto's own unique. However, her unique will only work for herself because the inherited version has a shorter duration, so it won't work on this track, and it will basically be a dead skill. Nimble Navigator or No Stopping Me got a significant buff on the balance adjustment. If it triggers at the correct time, it will give you a significant length and will be a key acceleration skills for non-front runners. However, on the upcoming champions meeting, where the last burst starts after the final corner, now Umas after the final corners are more likely to spread out now, making No Stopping Me less likely to trigger. I would recommend you just get the Nimble Navigator and only upgrade it to No Stopping Me if you have some skill points left over. Still, I think it's a worthy gamble for late and end closer. However, for a non-Taiki Pace Chaser, I would only recommend getting the Nimble Navigator. Taiki Shuttle should be okay without having to run another acceleration skill. I would recommend you focus on getting more speed skill instead on Taiki. The new updated Hanshin race course has a downward slope, so straight descent. However, similar to Unrestrained, and the gold version of that skill, Determined Descent, is currently only possible for Rice Shower to get it. Since this is a gambly acceleration, I'll recommend you to just stick with the white version of the skill. It's just too expensive. Hassan is a newly added acceleration skills for Pace Chaser, and you can only get them through a secret event from a specific Umas. For example, Taiki Shoto can get a hint for All I Got and Heads On by winning these 5 races during your career. You can also get it randomly during Spirit Explosion if you have an A aptitude on Pace. And I've seen some Taiki Shuttles running groundwork. And the reason why you want to run it on Pace Chaser is to help Pace Chaser move to the front early, so they can get in the good position for their unique acceleration at the last spurt. If you have the sparks and the green skills for it, I would recommend. It's definitely a strong skill even for a Pace Chaser. The acceleration for the late and ends are very similar to each other. The key skill will be the Midori Orion's unique Let's Pump the Iron. And for the other XL skills, I would recommend you to only get the white version of the skill and not waste too much points on getting the gold version of the acceleration skills. Instead, I would recommend you to spend your skill points on the middle game speed skill instead. Red Shift could also work for late and end closers. However, I wouldn't recommend it for Pace Chaser. If it triggers too early, it will be ineffective. The Taishin could also run Straightaway Spurt or Encroaching Shadow for additional acceleration. Although they trigger a little bit later into the spurt, you could run it as an insurance. Now let's go over the recommended skills. For the green, Tier 0 includes Right-Handed and Fall Runner. Tier 1 includes Firm Condition. And Tier 2 includes Outer Post Proficiency, Lone Wolf, for a potential 40 speed or to stop your opponent's Umas from triggering their Lone Wolf. Maverick actually got a buff on the balance adjustment. Now it gives plus 60 and 80 speed from 40 and 60. If you're planning on running Narita Taishin, I think Maverick could actually be a good pick. I expect not to see many end closer on the upcoming CM. Competitive Spirit got a buff. Now will trigger as long as if there's 3 other Umas with the same strategy. So if you're running something like Triple Frontrunner team, it should proc really easily now. For the Tier 3, these are extra green skills that you can use for groundwork trigger. Now let's go over the Universal Speed skill. Mile Straightaway and Mile Corner are universal skills that should be taught on every Umas if you have a hint for it. Ramp Up or It's On. It's On is one of the strongest skills for the upcoming CM, and in my opinion, it's a must-learn skill, even for Frontrunner. You can get a hint for It's On by getting S team rank on the Unity Cup scenario. It's On is so good that I would even consider choosing the top option for the Riko Kashimoto Dating Start event because it gives plus 3 hint to ramp up, so you can get it for much cheaper. However, there's a chance to break the run if you choose the top option. So I would pick the middle option when you're doing a borrowed run or got extremely high roll on the junior year. Productive Plan and Mile Maven got a significant buff from the balance adjustment. And I would basically take Miles Maven every time for Summer Marzensky and Taiki Shuttle. Tail held high, playtime is over, and sleep streams are all very strong middle game speed skill. They have a very good value to point ratio. Uma's then also got a significant buff and really helps you not to slow down during the pace down mode. But right now, not many of you are going to be able to learn the skills because lack of White Spark. If you get a hint for it, teach it to every non-frontrunner Umas. However, do be careful that running a Uma stand on late and end closer might make them move up too close to the front and miss their iron trigger. Unyielding Spirit also got a buff to the base duration. It used to be a strong skill, now it's even much stronger. Same thing for shifting gears. Corner Adept and Professor Curvature is still a great skill to learn if you got a lot of hint for it. Straight Away Adept and Home Stretch Haste, they both got a buff to the base duration and are now included on tier 2. Now for the skills unique to frontrunners, these are all tier 0 skills. Frontrunner Straightaway, Frontrunner Corner, Fast Pace, and Leader's Pride. Escape Artist is a must-get skill for Saiyan Sky. And Leader's Pride got a great buff. It's now a very strong skill. There is a new skill combination for the frontrunners, Dodging Danger and Prudent Positioning, or Ignited Spirit Wit. After the balance adjustment, the combination of these two skills give you significant speed increase at the initial portion of the race. However, bear in mind that you must get them together as a combo. Dodging Danger plus Prudent Position and or together with the Ignited Spirit Wit. Dodging Danger plus Prudent Positioning or Dodging Danger plus Ignited Spirit Wit. You can also get all three if you want, in case one of them doesn't trigger. If you can choose which one to get, Ignited Spirit Wit is slightly better than Prudent Positioning. Also, do not get the gold version of Prudent Positioning. The white version is good enough. It takes less skill points and I heard it's actually better than the gold version. Slower the lane movement speed, the better, because you want to drag the lane switching as long as possible for the maximum speed gain. They're not a must-get skill like Groundwork, but it's a very strong skill combination that could definitely improve your Uma's performance. So try to get it if you can, but doesn't mean that you have to send it to the glue factory if you don't get it. Also, bear in mind that this skill combination only works for the frontrunner. Also, do not teach this skill to your Umas unless you can get them both as a combo. If you only get Dodging Danger, your Umas will initially move to the outer lane and stay there, making you actually lose some length in the process. So you must get them together as a combo, else just ignore it. For Pace Chaser, on the tier 0, there's Pace Chaser Straightaway, Pace Chaser Corner. For tier 1, there's a Prepare to Pass or Speed Star, which you can get from 5 Motion. For Late Surger, similarly, there's the Late Surger Straightaway, Late Surger Corner. On tier 1, there's a Position Pilfer or Fast and Furious. And for tier 2, there's Outer Swell or Rising Dragon. You can get Fast and Furious on Vaca, and Rising Dragon, you can get it on Merger Orion or El Condor Pasa Alt. For End Closer, there's the End Closer Straightaway, End Closer Corner. Early Start is a new skill for the End Closer, and it's a very strong skill with a long duration. You can get it from a secret event for Narita Taishin. And you can also get it randomly from Spirit Explosion if you have Aptitude A on End. And for the debuff, at tier 0 we have Speed Eater for the front runners. It was one of the strongest skill in the game. Now it's even much stronger. Before, only the first place Uma could trigger it. Now, top 3 Umas can trigger it. So if you run something like a triple front runner, triple front Speed Eater, you can basically turn the rest of the lobby into a snail. And other debuffs are in tier 2. Other than Speed Eater, I don't think that debuffs are that strong on the upcoming CM. However, if you do want to run a debuffer, I would recommend you to run speed debuffs like Opening Gambit, Dominator. Keen Eye also got a buff to now include speed debuff to every Umas ahead of you during the bottom half of the pack. And there's also Hesitant Front Runner and Hesitant Pace Chaser. I wouldn't worry too much about the Late Surger and End Closer. So there you go. These are the recommended skills for upcoming Champions Meeting Virgo Cup. Now, if you're tight on skill points, should you rather get double circle on a strong skill or try to get single circle of multiple skills? In my opinion, instead of taking a double circle of a single skill, it's better for you to take single circle of multiple skills, because having number of these gives you more opportunity to help you overtake Umas in front of you and also stop other Umas from overtaking you. I would only try to focus on the main acceleration skill and not worry too much about the golden version of the acceleration skills. Like no stopping me, I would rather you get the white version of the skill, use the leftover points on the speed skill instead. These speed skills are extremely important. These speed skills are what's going to help you win the race. It helps you fight and defend to get into a better position for the last spurt and to help you trigger your acceleration skill. I've seen so many players with Umas with like 3 to 4 gold version of acceleration skill and not have any skill points left over for speed skill. I wouldn't recommend you doing that. Instead, spend your skill point on the key acceleration, and for the gambly acceleration, just get the white version. Focus on the middle game speed skill first. After that, if you have some points, then you can spend it on the gold version of the gambly acceleration. But the gold version of speed skill are worth it. and I will definitely prioritize on getting the tier 0 gold version of the speed skill. And these are the recommended team composition. I think the strongest will be the 2 front and 1 pace combo, or maybe 2 fronts and 1 late or end combo. If you have a really strong Taiki, you can also do something like 1 runaway blocker plus 2 pace, or 1 runaway with 1 pace and 1 late or end. Triple fronts could also be a viable team comp. Frontrunners tends to be favored on a frontrunner-centric lobby. I have also seen some solo Saiyan Sky ace build in the KR server, where you run 1 really strong Saiyan Sky and 2 debuffers with double keen eye, double hesitant frontrunner, hesitant pace chaser, basically all the double speed buff to make sure that Saiyan Sky gets the angling no matter what. However, this strategy could quickly fall apart if Saiyan Sky gets the late start. And this is the build that you can do if you want to be prepared for anything. Your Runaway Suzuka can block other frontrunners so that your Taiki Shuttle can win. But the lobby turns out to be a front-heavy lobby, then one of your frontrunner can win the match. If your main strategy is to win with your frontrunners, do not use the Runaway Suzuka. And for newbies who just started and do not have a really strong support cards, I think still the best way to win is to just run triple Gamba comp, the triple Lay Surger and end closer, trying to make sure that at least one of them will get the less pump or iron, plus additional acceleration to win the race. If you are trying to run this kind of comp, make sure that you bring enough middle game speed skill to not fall behind. Personally, I'll be running a triple front runner build again, and hope I don't run into a really strong Runaway Suzuka. Now let's go over the recommended Umas. Over here, I only included the main notable Umas and one main representative on their respective strategy. Summer Maruzensky and Taiki Shuttle are going to be the 2 most dominant Umas on the upcoming Champions Meeting Virgo Cup. If I had to pick one, I would lean a little bit more towards Summer Maruzensky over Taiki Shuttle. And this is not because I don't have her yet. On a balanced matchup with 3 front, 3 pace, and 3 late and end, on my limited sample size, I found that fronts are more favored than the other strategies. However, like I went over previously, if we add a strong Runaway Suzuka into the fray, then the result completely flips and becomes heavily favored towards Taiki Shuttles. But then again, if there's too many frontrunners in the race, the result again becomes much favorable to frontrunners instead. And remember, even if the front is the most dominant strategy, your frontrunner has to be stronger than the other 2 trainers' frontrunners for you to actually win the match. So as you can see, there's not really a one strategy that will be dominant on every specific type of match. It will be kind of like a game of rock, paper, scissors. It will heavily depend on the composition of the Uma in the match, and also depends on how strong your Umas are compared to your opponent's Umas. Like if you create a really strong Umas, no matter what strategy you run it as, it is likely for you to get a really high win rate. You just have to know what you're doing. And the other recommended Umas are Oguri Cap, ran as a late surger or even end closer. Units like Saiyan Sky is good because her acceleration is guaranteed, has longer duration, and higher acceleration amount. So you don't have to rely on other accelerations at the last spurt and can focus spending your skill points on getting more speed skill instead. And she has easy access to Escape Artist, one of the best gold speed skill for the frontrunners. But it's really hard for her to win the angling contest against Summer Maruzensky and a Runaway Suzuka, unless she runs like crap ton of middle phase speed skills. I already talked about Runaway Suzuka extensively on this video and her potential to be run as a blocker with Taiki Shuttle. And I put Vodka as the representative for the Lay Surger, not because she's the strongest. I think Oguri Cap is actually stronger than Lay Surger Vodka, but it's just another option for you to run for the Lay Surger that's really easy to build with a 10% growth rate on speed and 20% on power. Also, she has access to Furious Feet. And for Lay Surger, there's no better pick than Narita Taishin for this upcoming CM. With the balance change on the bad condition, and now everyone having access to Riko Kashimoto, Narita Taishin has become a much stronger pick than ever before during the Unity Cup scenario. These are just some of the examples of the potential Umas that you can run for the upcoming CM Virgo Cup. I'm not going to go over all the available Umas and rank them in a tier list. You can go to Mumukao or wait for Victoria Frontier to release this video for the Virgo Cup. But with the balance adjustment, more than ever before, almost every Umas has the potential to become a winner for the upcoming CM. Just bring a correct acceleration respective to their own strategy. Bring these middle game speed skills, and you can also win your next Champions Meeting, Virgo Cup. Anyway, this was Henry Hansen's first Champions Meeting guide for the Virgo Cup. This is all based on my knowledge, research, and my limited amount of testing that I was able to do on a short period of time. The meta that you see on the actual matches might be slightly different from what I guessed on this video. And that's totally understandable since global server is now a wild, wild west. It's anybody's games now. But I hope that this video was able to help you to prepare for the next upcoming Champions Meeting Virgo Cup one way or the other. You can access the tables for the stat requirement and the skill recommendation by clicking this hyperlink on my banner timeline. Now you can use this to reference when you're confused of which skill to prioritize over the other. I hope you find it useful. Good luck out there. If you get your platinum trophies, I will see you on the other side. Have a handsome day, everyone. Bye-bye. And I would like to thank my contributors, Kia, Tao, Merkel, Cal the New, Teku, Brian Goldsberry, Burst, Jamin Taylor, Tama, and Groggle. And thank you, DOD Grandes, for your generous donation.